So this is the romance show, right?
Yeah.
So you got the memo.
You gonna wear that?
You gonna wear that?
What's the matter with this?
You know, it's no wonder your love life is a shambles.
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by Netflix and GoDaddy.
iFanboy, the comic book discussion show from the website iFanboy.com. We are here to talk about comics. I'm Josh.
I'm Connor.
And I'm Ron. And look at your calendar. Valentine's Day is approaching. It's this Saturday. So we thought it'd be a good... Yeah, no, you're rude.
Every time!
It's also my sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Christina. But Valentine's Day is my niece's birthday as well. So
13th is my mom's birthday.
Valentine's Day is my brother's birthday, actually.
Really? Is
I swear
it?
to God, yeah.
Wow.
Tomorrow's my mother-in-law's birthday.
Nice, excellent. All right. So,
Wow.
My sister-in-law's this week.
Valentine's Day tends to be the time we talk about, romance,
Birthdays.
Okay, we're going to talk about the romance. So talk about romance and those type of the world of love. And funny, when people think of comic books, quite often they don't really think of romance. But the romance...
Is it because it's a bunch of dudes?
A bunch of dudes in space.
Who are emotionally stunted?
Yeah, but the romance has been a genre of comic all the way back to the Golden Age.
From the beginning, from the very beginning.
From the very, very beginning. Essentially, comics, we've always talked about comics and visual storytelling has always been about people and interaction, so it's only natural that, love and relationships crop up. So as we all know, in the history of comics, Superman and Batman started in the 30s and then the 40s. And,
As a romance comic that no one realizes.
Yeah, really. It was...
I wouldn't think you'd make that joke.
But, so in 1947, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon started a title called Young Romance. Basically,
What was that about?
It was about young romance. Essentially, what they realized, which is really kind of funny, the way they told the story, is that they recognized that these comics that they were making were being read less and less by the kids that they were writing them for, and more by adults. And so they said, well, since adults are reading comics, let's make some comics that speak to the kind of the stories they'd be interested in. So they started a whole line of romance comics. Young romance, young love, all these variations and those type of things. And what was funny about these comics is that they tended to focus on the women's point of view, and they were often middle class, women in their 20s dealing with workplace issues, infidelity, marriage, divorce, like all these kind of melodramatic
Things you wouldn't think they dealt with in that time period.
Exactly, and also they were all written by men. So the accuracy of the women's reactions probably were a little suspect. But for whatever reason, it resonated with the audience, and actually by 1952, 25% of all comics were romance comics. At one point, young romance outsold Superman in the 50s.
It was, you're talking about the pre-split where all the genre disappeared. Back then, those genre books were so popular.
Right.
Much more popular than superhero books.
And so romance comics thrived, and then Frederick Wertham came around and said comic books are bad, and like the horror comics of EC Comics, the romance comics kind of went the wayside. They did have a small resurgence in the early 60s with the Silver Age comics. Marvel most notably took a title called Millie the Model.
Hey, who did that one?
Kirby.
Kirby again.
Yeah. Millie the Model, which was originally a humor title in the 50s, kind of like the Archies. They took it and spun it as a romance comic in the 60s about this model in New York City. And
Well, in the early 60s, that Marvel was still trying to figure out what they were going to do.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't clear like we are a superhero like that. Like the idea of the comic book companies being just for superheroes is a relatively modern one that started after that. So they were like, well, Martin Goodman, who was the guy in charge of Marvel at the time, was like, let's throw whatever we can to the wall. Whatever the kids are interested in right now, that's what we'll
Westerns,
do.
romance, all kinds of different genres.
So and Kirby, at the time also wasn't just known for superheroes. He was doing whatever they asked him to do. So he's like, well, we'll try this. So
yeah. So romance as a genre after the Silver Age kind of fell by the wayside again. But what's interesting is, and we're going to talk about it later in the show, the concept of romance and the concept of relationships has been ever present in comics since Superman and Lois Lane.
You can't not have it.
Exactly.
It's almost impossible to write a human story without having
some sort of love. Folks who watch the show or listen to our audio show or read the website know that I've got the romance comics have a little special place in my heart. I like the melodrama. I like the telenovela, whatever the Spanish soap opera.
He keeps wanting to do the shows with candles, and it's like I just don't know. I don't know if that's a good idea.
But one of the first comics that kind of grabbed me in what I figure the romance kind of genre is Terry Moore's Strangers in Paradise, which we've talked about lots of times. It's a not non-traditional romance comic, if you.
Oh, I'd say.
Yeah, in that it involves the relationship and the love between two best friends, Francine and Kachu. Is also ties into a bunch of there's a lot of intrigue and thriller and drama and stuff like that.
Well, it's not just Francine and Kachu though. You got a guy, David. I mean, it's not non-traditional because it's two women because it's like. Yeah. It's a quadrangle. It's not even just you know.
There's a lot going on, but the
Tambi.
The backbone of the entire series, which went on for several volumes and finished up a couple of years ago, was the relationships of the main characters of Francine and Kachu, and Francine and David, and Tambi and David, and all the you know, and like you said, Freddie and what's her name? Casey. No matter what the story was, whether it involved intrigue or the police or anything like that, it always fell back to their relationship.
Well, that's the backbone of the series.
In love with who. And really, really touching and kind of emotional. When the last issue came out, I shed a tear. It was, you know, quite
just one though. He was like, blink, done, out.
But so, you know, in terms of the sprawling kind of romantic epic, Strangers in Paradise to me is always the kind of go-to one.
Well, it's a long one.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's lots of, I mean,
do they get together in the end?
I guess
Want to guess?
Sorry.
Maybe.
So,
Blue Monday is one that we all. Do you like? You don't like. Ron and I like Blue Monday. This is right up your alley.
Yeah, Blue Monday was by Chynna Clugston, and Blue Monday focuses on a group of teenagers who are more of the kind of mod indie kind of crowd. Very kind of.
It's very music oriented,
but focuses on Blue Finnegan, who is the main character, and I mean, just looking at the this year's Absolute Beginners, one of the early trades that came out from Oni Press. Just straight on the cover, you see her looking at the boy and another boy behind her looking at her. So it's classic case of he loves her but she doesn't know.
Isn't that the teacher?
Him. Yeah, it's the teacher. Yeah.
He's the young one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the Pretty in Pink. Is that the classic
it's a little,
James Spader? And
Blaine. It's not a name. It's an appliance. But what's really cool about it is that it's set, like you said, set in high school and very realistic and very kind of relatable, at least for me, in terms of And there's some weird stuff that happens in it, like she's got a talking otter that she was friends with, and then that kind of dropped off as the series progressed. And
good call.
Yeah, pretty much. But a lot of kind of slapsticky kind of romance hijinks and things like that happen to it. But again, the backbone of it is who Blue has a crush on, who Victor has a crush on, and how the relationships kind of develop through the life of it. To finally, after several years off, Chynna Clugston's returned back to the title, and Oni's publishing a new series this year. So I'm very excited about that.
Will they find love?
I hope so.
It's funny because I think the thing that like, it was all this chasing of people, but no one ever got together.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a lack of actual relationship. It was always like the leading up to for me.
Yeah, which is funny that you've mentioned that because the next book I want to talk about is a book that I recently discovered called Empowered.
I didn't do that on purpose.
I know, it was a great segue though. So Empowered is by Adam Warren. It's published by Dark Horse Comics, and it kind of crosses over into the superhero genre, but I kind of classify it more as a romance book because there have been 4 volumes of it so far. It comes in this kind of larger size digest kind of format. Really interesting in that Adam Warren he draws in the manga style. He's one of the few kind of like Americans who really have a defined Japanese style. And he got somebody commissioned him to do a series of sketches of a heroine with her costume ripped apart in bondage. And so he's getting paid to do it, so he's like, all right, I'll do this.
I like that sort of thing. I'm sorry.
So what happened was that as he's drawing this character
Connor.
that is just a sketch.
They're up in my bedroom.
He develops a character. He develops she develops personality. In his head while he's sketching. While he's doing it, so he starts doing these several kind of 4 or 5 page stories about her, where what she is that she is a fledgling superhero. Her powers come from her suit. Which give her, kind of strength and ability, but the suit is incredibly unstable. And 2 minutes into a fight, it gets torn to shreds, and she's powerless. And then the villains tie her up, and then she's got to wait for the other heroes to come save her. It's kind of a one-note joke until he introduced her boyfriend, who is a former villainous henchman. Oh. And so what you've got is he
has a thin mustache.
Yeah. What you've got is that they meet while she's busting his gang. And you see them flirting while they're fighting, and like he's like, "Oh, I'll tie you up," and then you see their romance progress to the point where they get together by the end of the first volume, and through the next 3 volumes they date. and it's the evolution of that relationship, jealousy and things like that. And it's really, really smart. It plays a lot with the superhero genre, makes fun of it.
Does it make fun of the whole naked superhero genre? Because it's hard to really...
There's a lot of nudity. This is more for adults. There's a lot of nudity. There's a lot of language.
I'm less likely to read that while out.
I probably...
I don't see any nudity. I see lots of suggestion of nudity, but I don't see any actual nudity.
There's a lot of G-strings and things like that, but there's a couple of hardcore sex scenes, but no nudity. But it's hardcore.
There's a couple of hardcore sex scenes, but no nudity. I don't
see how that works.
Your definition of hardcore might be off.
But
I'll be over here.
It was really kind of I don't know.
It's subversive.
Yeah. It was more unique than anything I've read in a while. It was really good, and it reminded me of the book Love Fights by Andi Watson.
Love Fights was a really unique little story that came out from Oni. I think it was 12 issues. I think done by Andi Watson. He did the art and the story. And
it's important to say Andi Watson has a large library of relationships.
It's almost an Andi Watson like book. He's almost a descriptor.
Yeah. There's a super cat.
Yep.
There's a superhero female.
Yeah.
I believe in
a reporter.
And it's like what it's like to fall in love with that, and the whole thing that goes along with it. It's not as heavy as it could be. Like if you told that story in Marvel or DC, like it would be about the ramifications of doing that thing. It's more like a little cute love story. Yeah. The art is Andi Watson style, which is very simple and very charming. And he's done other books too in the same way. A lot of his books feel like that. Slow News Day, Dumped, Breakfast Afternoon. These are all books that he does, and he's done other stuff. Geisha.
And Andi Watson, he's got a great style and it's a very simple way of drawing the stories, but the stories are incredibly touching. Remember what was the one Little Star or something like that? It was just really, really just kind of very personal. So.
It's like. It's a superhero book, but only in the most nominal way. Like it's like, well, listen, let's just do this story, but let's put a mask on them.
Right.
It's like this kind of superhero love story you would never ever see from either of the two big superhero publishers, and I think that's how it works. Other than that, it's an Andi Watson book.
And it was published by Oni.
Yeah.
And also published by Oni, Jamie S. Rich has been doing a series of romance-based books. I think he and I have a very similar taste. One that was really cute was 12 Reasons Why I Love Her, which is a bunch of kind of short stories about this one relationship that were very, very good. And Love the Way You Love, which kind of made me laugh because if Scott Pilgrim didn't exist, this book would have a lot more traction. But it's drawn by Mark Ellerby. And it's about a guy who's in a band, and he meets a girl whose boyfriend is the record label guy, and it's kind of steeped in that whole music kind of world.
We talked about this in the Love episode before. No, not
the music.
The music, that's right. Sorry,
but it was
I'm so confused.
Still fun and still pretty good.
I really like the art in this one.
Yeah, that one's
Joel Jones.
Really pretty, really good.
It's gorgeous.
And that story is really great too.
I liked Love the Way You Love because it had nice ongoing quality.
Yeah.
And there was like resolution, and they'd move on to things.
So one of your favorites is a romance comic.
True Story, Swear to God, is the story of the cartoonist Tom Dillon. It's like this ongoing story of his life, and when he was a little older, he met this girl Lily. He was at Disneyland or Disney World, and she is from Puerto Rico, and he's from sort of the Napa Valley, California area, and they get to know each other, and they go on dates, and he falls in love, and it's like he's incredibly straightforward about his own shortcomings. One of the things is it's almost sickly sweet a little bit. It's like, I love this girl so much and blah blah blah, but at the same time then he goes on to make fun of himself, and I think that the real strength of this is the characterization of himself and Lily. And the cartooning is fairly simple. He was a newspaper cartoonist, and
so it's got that simple lines,
kind
of detail.
He moves to Puerto Rico to be with her. They're long distance for a while. Just a great, also at the same time, like he's struggling to get his career going. At the same time, he's doing all of this.
Commentary about working in comics.
Stuff like that. This is Image Comics, the True Story Swear to God Archive Volume 1. Just a big sort of newsprint black and white book. This is a great way to get this book. I had been buying it in these trade paperbacks. It used to be with AIT Planet Lair. Now it's with Image, and I believe it's still going on.
Yeah,
I think.
it is.
Yeah. Really sweet. These are great for lots of different people. This is a good comic book for.
And it's the fact that it's somewhat based. It's based on his life, so there's a kind of autobiographical angle to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of relatable in that way. And in the same note, the somewhat autobiographical is the renowned Blankets,
which we are going to talk about
by Craig Thompson
after we get back from the break.
This episode of iFanboy is brought to you by GoDaddy.com. Web hosting from GoDaddy.com includes 99.9% uptime, 24/7 support, and free access to Hosting Connection, the place to install over 30 free applications sure to help you get the most from your hosting plan and website. If you want to make an impact online, GoDaddy.com has what you need. .com names for as low as $1.99, plus world-class hosting, fast and easy website builders, and much, much more. Please support our sponsors by checking out GoDaddy.com and using the coupon code iFanboy to get 10% off your purchase and to let them know that we sent you. Thanks to Netflix for sponsoring this episode of iFanboy. With Netflix, you can rent over 100,000 titles online with free shipping both ways to your home. They have over 40 shipping centers, so almost all deliveries happen within just one business day. If you have an Xbox 360, they're streaming to that. If you have a PlayStation 3, then you can get Blu-ray titles. So there's all sorts of ways that you can use Netflix. The Netflix plans start from just $4.99. As a new member, you can get a free, no-risk 2-week trial. Check it out at www.netflix.com/iFanboy, and don't forget to use that www when using that code.
Hey, it's Ron, and I'm here at the Revision 3 studio here in San Francisco at the Revision 3 headquarters, and I just want to take a quick second to ask you a favor. We're doing a survey to get your opinion of our show, Revision 3 in general, and the way you like to watch internet TV, and some information about you. These surveys help us get more information about our audience. It helps us make better shows and give you a better product. So if you have a couple of minutes, head over to revision3.com/iFanboy survey. It shouldn't take very long. And if you take the whole survey, at the very end of it, you can see a little sneak preview of a show that we're working on. We'd love to get your feedback about that as well. So head over to revision3.com/iFanboy survey. Thanks, and back to the show.
There are hardly any other books out there that get sort of the kind of praise that Blankets does.
Time, New York Times, Publishers Weekly, Entertainment Weekly.
I just mean from readers. When you talk, I mean that's good too. But like we hear from people all the time that say that reading this was a real experience for them.
Yeah.
Personally, when I went into it the first time, I think that I had too many expectations built up about what it was, and I didn't enjoy it as much as that. I reread it recently, and I came to appreciate it a lot more. I think one of the things that can be off-putting, depending on who you are and where you've been raised, is that Craig Thompson was raised in a very strict Christian household, and a lot of the book deals with him coming to terms with that and dealing with what that means to his personality and like the immense guilt that he's had laid upon him. So, depending on your point of view, you're going to take a different read of this book. However, in the middle of all that is that he meets this girl, Raina, while he's at church camp, and falls in love with her while he's a teenager. It's literally teenage love, long distance relationship. I had a very similar story to this. When I was 16, I met a girl while I was camping.
So you said you were almost a priest.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, I would have been a bad priest. I have good advice. When I was 16, I met a girl, and she lived in Massachusetts. I lived in Maine, and we dated for like a year. Like we'd send each other letters, and I'd go down there.
You met her at camp.
Yeah. No, and we'd send each other a letter, and I'd go visit her. I'd go down, and I'm gonna just go through this, and you're not gonna make fun of me. And I'd drive down to see her, and it's very, very similar to this because like that, when you're 16, that small amount of time that you can spend with them is just like, this is the greatest thing ever, and when I have to get back to my life, I feel like I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And he really captures that
really,
really well. I think one of the other things that I noticed reading it this time through is that the cartooning in it is really up to the level that people say it is. I mean, it is.
Well, it's elegant.
It's really impressive.
Yeah.
And he just captures so much about that awkwardness and all that stuff.
Innocence. And
it's absolutely beautiful.
It's really, really good. So that's from Top Shelf. And then the last book I'm going to talk about in this kind of romance genre is I was talking to a friend of mine saying, we're going to talk about romance books. He said, Preacher.
I would have said the exact same thing.
Which you wouldn't think, but it's true.
Yeah, exactly. So Preacher from Vertigo, the classic, we did a whole episode about it. The high level is Jesse Custer is on a road to find God and hold God accountable for abandoning humans. But at the same time, it's a love story between
Jesse and Tulip. The second volume is called Until the End of the World, and that is the theme of their love story, basically. Yeah. I will love you until the end of the world. And the fact is, but I said this, I think when we did the show, between movies, books, whatever it is that I've read and seen, I don't think that I have ever seen a relationship that was portrayed more romantically and more endlessly than sort of that scene of them like just sitting on a car, like talking to each other.
And with their fair share of troubles and problems and resolutions.
It's a fairly realistic relationship, a lot of ups and downs. Even if you could even make a case between Jesse and Cassidy have a romance.
Bromance.
A bromance.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, there's sort of a love story between them as well.
Yeah. But I mean, but the thing is, like, it's sort of their story about how they came apart and came together, and the stuff in the middle. It's absolutely romantic, and I think that's why. I hate to generalize, but I think that a lot of women find themselves liking Preacher and not expecting to, because that is in there, and that part, and it's just like he did with. Ennis did the same thing with John Constantine. He gave him Kit. It's the same sort of thing. He's really good at that. The romance part of it's good.
Well, it's a good transitory book into superhero talk about romance because it's not the focus. These all other books, the focus is the romance.
Love is the relationship.
This is the romance is in the background, but it's still strong.
Yeah.
And then you get in the superhero world where, you tend to think of superheroes as fighting, guys pitting each other as hard as they can.
Capes and tights.
But there's almost always a romantic element subplot.
I mean, like literally, I could go through,
Every hero.
Superman,
Lois Lane.
Hal Jordan,
Carol
Carol
Ferris.
Ferris.
Barry Allen, Wally West.
Yep, so all the Flashes always have girlfriends' wives.
Peter Parker's got Mary Jane.
There's always a romantic element, unless you're like the Punisher.
Hulk and but Punisher had a wife.
She died.
Yeah,
Yeah, but that's why he's doing it.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, there's always a
And the kids.
storyline.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Pretty much every. I mean, Fantastic Four is their family based on Reed and Sue getting married. So like.
It's weird. It's interesting that
Batman gets some ass.
I know, but his thing isn't about her. Like he's like his whole thing is that he's been trying to shun love because it gets in the way of his crusade.
Right, but doesn't stop him sleeping with Selena from Talia from
Wouldn't you?
Zatanna and
Zatanna. Yeah.
Silver St. Cloud,
Yeah.
Vicky Vale.
Even Wolverine, Silver Fox.
He didn't
Who's
sleep
the
with
one from
Wolverine.
R.I.P. Did Jet, Jelena?
She was bad, Jessica Jet.
I know, but
Yeah, but they slept together.
Yeah.
he was totally in love with her.
Anyway, so superheroes always have that subtext. I mean, and it's funny because I was describing. I find every now and then somebody who's not one of us says, tell me about this comics thing. And
I just got jealous.
and my new way of explaining is that comics, especially superhero comics, have more in common with dramas and soap operas. They're soap operas, and there's always that romantic subplot going. So whether it's Lois Lane being in love with Superman but not Clark, and Clark being in love with Lois and that sort of thing.
Or Reed and Sue and Namor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the triangle, type thing going on, or the kind of idea of unrequited love, always, kind of being on the same team and being in love with each other, like Scott and Jean and the X-Men for years, where they just, where they finally got together and.
Well, one of the things that's interesting that comes up is that because comics have to maintain the status quo, they have to keep going. Like it's like will they or won't they gets ruined when they do,
Right.
or when they don't.
Much like on Moonlighting.
Or something that somebody would refer to now.
Dawson's Creek.
The Office.
The Office.
Yeah.
Although it's been good. No, that's not that.
No, it's not the thing with comics is they have to keep it going, and it's interesting that some couples
Endure.
you can put them together and you can have them in a relationship.
Green Arrow, Black Canary.
Green Arrow and Black Canary, where others, there's a strong backlash recently with Spider-Man and Mary Jane. So it was in fact rent asunder.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to me that some of them work and some of them don't. You look at the JSA, you've got Our Man and
Our Man and
Liberty. Our Man. I love them as a couple. I love them.
You've only gotten a couple of panels, really.
Like one panel per comic over 25 issues, and it's just the way they refer to each other and the way that there's
The body language.
Daily Eaglesham.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that couple.
Then there's the ones that don't work.
Quicksilver and what's her face from the Inhumans.
Crystal.
Yeah, Crystal. Yeah,
Crystal's married though, isn't?
Yeah, no, to him.
Are they still married?
No, they're separated now because he went crazy.
Well, he's a dick. You don't want to make. He's all Flash.
Or anything Scarlet Witch and Vision. I mean, look at all the
Scarlet Witch and Vision, though, is one of those great, and in the same vein, Clint Barton and Bobby, who are now back together. They're both. She's
They're
alive.
back.
Well, she's alive, is what I mean.
Right.
But like, the first thing they did was kiss, and it's like that's one of those great romances.
Then she punched him.
Yeah. Well, he's a dick.
I think.
Because she was like, "Who'd you sleep with while I was gone?" He's like, Dick Grayson and Barbara
Gordon. Yeah.
I mean, that's. I'm just listing things.
The thing is, when people talk about superhero comics, they often talk about the romances, and that is, I think, as important as the fighting. And I think some psychologists would probably say the fighting is romance.
Yeah.
Is that the hitting each other, or does it really want to be
This
loving?
is the second time this is.
Yeah,
this is come up in your-
Connor's making it weird.
I'm just saying. I don't think I agree with him saying there's some theories.
No,
of
yeah, I can see that.
violence.
Well, because there's a lot of passion involved in
Yeah.
fighting as well as in the lovemaking, and then there's a
The making of the love.
Can we just radically shift gears? Can we just pretend? Can we retcon the last couple of minutes?
So yeah, no, but I think there is
Just an aspect of that, yeah.
And honestly, it's like for me, the comics that I like the best are the ones that have those relationships and those romances tied into them.
Honestly, what do you relate to more? I mean, that's what you
Right,
relate
yeah,
to. You relate to
exactly.
that aspect of the story.
Are you saying that Lex Luthor is actually in love with Clark Kent?
It could be possibly. That could be. Yeah.
If you know, that's actually a really interesting way to not say it, but if you were to write it that way,
Yeah.
like if you said that is really what it is. Oh,
Write it.
right. Like all over Doctor Doom's lair is like Victor and Reed.
BVD plus RR.
He writes Victor Richards and he crosses it out. And he writes Reed Von Doom and he goes, ooh, and he circles it with a heart.
So so the romance is steeped throughout all comics. There's whether it's a specific romance comics or within the pages of Green Arrow, Black Canary, The Flash, or X-Men or whatever. You can't escape it. You can't escape the women.
I don't think.
Or the men.
Nothing can stop the Juggernaut.
Yes.
I don't think you can have comics without romance.
I agree.
That's in some form or another.
A lot of the best things, like so many, Daredevil is defined by
Losing
what
Karen
happened
Page.
with losing Karen Page, before that losing Elektra.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and Black Widow sleeps with everybody, but she does.
Yeah.
Everyone. She
Yeah.
has like, if you like,
If you're an Avenger and you haven't slept with Black Widow, you screwed up.
Take that girl in the dorm. That was. Never mind.
Anyway, so if you know of a romance comic that I would like that I haven't heard of, email us at contact@ifanboy.com. Let us know.
You can call in, leave us a voicemail or your phone number if you want.
I can only imagine the calls we're going to get on
888
this
fanboys, which is 326-2697.
I'm sorry. Let's just retcon the whole show out. You can discuss these comics or more, and the couples you like, and the ones you don't like, and all this stuff, and make fun of us, which is what's going to happen at ifanboy.com. There'll be discussion there, and at revision3.com/ifanboy. There will also be discussion there.
Yes. I love love.
Are we all going to make out now, or what's going to happen?
Oh, so many shows end like that. How's it feel, bitch?
Wow, that was neat.